today we are doing another episode of The Weekend. I have my lovely co-host, Cordarius. Last month we talked about our humbling financial journey, and we kind of gave you guys a glimpse of the things that we kind of endured and went through, and how we have since then made steps to kind of get back on track and have a healthier financial life. So today we wanted to follow up on that and just kind of show you guys exactly how we budget and how I guess our system for our finances and how we do things. So we hope this will be helpful to you guys, and yeah, we'll just get right into it. So first off, KP is gonna explain the way that we do things, our system, if you will. We kind of have like a 4-step system that we go by, so I'll let him tell you guys a little bit about that.
So this system came about during that time of when we were going through our financial chaos. Oh yeah, hard place. And so this came through prayer and just asking God to give us guidance concerning our finances. And so in just learning more about being financially responsible, he kind of gave us, first of all, the different order, sort of an order for us in how we should get our finances together. The first step would be our tithes. So we first pay tithes in all things. We do tithes first. The second thing would be we take care of our household. So in terms of household, that, and I guess we'll go back into each one when we get ready to go over the steps, but we do household second, then we do our offering third, and then we do our seed last. So offering and seed are two different things. And so we'll go into more detail a little later when we're going over each step.
Right. So that is our system, our step system of how we handle our finances. So right now we're going to show you guys, and what we do is traditional paper and pen. We don't have like a fancy Excel or
we tried it
sheets and stuff.
We tried it before.
Yeah.
We tried apps and we've tried Excel documents, but it's just not.
It's just easier to just write it and just, spend more time with it that way. But we do use pencil and paper, nothing fancy, just super traditional. So I'm gonna show you guys how we do our bi-weekly budget, and I'm gonna record how I go through and write everything out and get the numbers together and all that jazz. So quick disclaimer about it: the numbers and the figures that you will see are not our actual figures, just for the sake of our privacy, but the general way of how I'm doing it and how I will show you guys is exactly what we do. So guys, before we get into showing you the actual numbers and figures, I want to point out that we make our bi-weekly budget based off of what we are planning to get paid. And what we are planning to get paid is always based off our lowest income that we've ever gotten. So you'll see income $2,500. That means that would have been the lowest that we've ever received together bi-weekly.
Yeah.
$2,500. This just helps us to kind of safeguard ourselves and not overshoot for anything. So let's say that we had budgeted and we said we were gonna make $2,700, and then you've put all these things in there and you've gotten all these expenses and you only bring in $2,600, and now you have that discrepancy there of how much you actually brought and the things that you need to pay. So we kind of do it like that because we would always rather have excess than not enough to take care of our needs.
Yeah, and one thing about that is when I was a hourly employee, what would happen sometimes is during certain weeks I would get a shorter check. So some weeks I would have maybe on a regular basis I would have like a 80-hour check or an 88-hour check, where on some weeks it might be a 72-hour check, or it might be a little lower than that, or some might be a 96.
Yeah.
So we would do it based off the lowest amount.
Based off the 72 hours. That way we're never caught slipping and never caught with, having too much stuff to pay for that we can't afford.
Yeah, because you
And
can't
so,
bank on the
yeah.
bonus.
And so some checks would be the 92 hours, and that's just excess. But we just always plan off the lowest number possible, just to make sure that our cost of living, even if he only works the minimum hours, we can afford the cost of living. We can afford to pay our bills and all of that jazz. So just wanted to throw that out there. So the budget that we're going to show you guys, it's not going to include any, like he said, extra hours, any bonuses, any overtime, any random seeds. So like his birthday just passed, that wouldn't include any money that he may have gotten for his birthday, things like that. That would all be in excess.
And
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah.
No. I was just gonna say, and when those things come, then we readjust the budget.
Yeah.
So if my income was a little bit more, we would adjust our tithes. We would adjust certain things or certain aspects of the budget based off of that.
Right.
But we'll get into a little bit more of that in a minute.
Yeah.
So the first thing is tithes. So tithes, this is kind of a touchy subject for many people. And so paying tithes. So what is a tithe? First of all, a tithe is a tenth of all of your increase. It's the first fruit. So it's the first thing that comes out before anything else comes out. So this is and it is the first thing that comes out of your net income. Now, what I will say, it comes from, we do ours based off of the gross income. But when I say that it comes out of your net income, meaning that once it gets to your hand, it is then the net income because all of your deductions have been taken out. So that's why I call it net income. Is coming from that. But we pay our tithes off of our gross income. So the overall amount that we make, our gross income, we pay tithes off of that. Now, what I will say about tithes goes to the church. So we pay our tithes to our local church, and it is 10%. So tithe, literally, the word tithe means tenth. So 10% of our gross income each pay period goes to our local church, the church that we attend, the church that we go to, grow from, eat from, it goes there. As the instructions were in Malachi 3 and 10 through 12, which tells us to bring our whole tithe to the storehouse so that there may be meat in mine house. And God says to try me in this and see that I won't open the windows of heaven, pour you out a blessing so much that you won't even have room to contain it. In verses 11 and 12, it goes even further to give us an understanding that the tithe is not for him. The tithe is for us. Paying the tithes does something also for us. He says that when you do this, not only will I open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, but I will also rebuke the devourer. And he says for your sake, he says that he will rebuke the palmer worm and all of those things that come after your finances to eat up your harvest and everything that you've sown and worked hard for. He will rebuke all of those things when you obey his instruction and his order. And so his order was to pay him first. His order was to sow and pay our tithes and to give our tithes, bring them to the storehouse, meaning, and in today's society, that is the local church. Now, what some people will say about tithes is because it is just, they feel like, well, that was back in the Old Testament, but Jesus actually told us in the New Testament that we are supposed to continue to tithe as well as keep all of the other commandments as well. He said that it is good that you do these things and to do all of these things. Now, tithing, a lot of people say that this was a part of the Mosaic law, but tithing was actually introduced before then. It was sort of insinuated in the story of Cain and Abel. We know that Cain killed Abel, but we know that it was because of the offerings that they brought forth to God. Now, the offering that Abel brought was more that which resembles a tithe, which is the first fruit of his born oxen and all of the things that he had been keeping. So it was the first fruits of those things. It was the firstborn of those animals that he had been keeping. And so some people consider this to be the first time that tithes were sort of insinuated. Now, another time that tithes were introduced was in the story of Abraham. When he had done what he was instructed to do, or what he was doing to go and rescue his nephew, what ended up happening was that Abraham had a lot of things that he gained from that. And so what he did was he went forth and he gave a tithe to Melchizedek, which was a leader at that time, which was a sort of like a ruler or a leader at that time in that era. And so he gave basically 10% of all of the things that he had reaped, or all of the things that he had gained after he had done that. So that was the next time that it was introduced. And then we know also that God gave specific instruction to the children of Israel and to Moses in Exodus, and in Leviticus and all of that, where he gives specific instruction about the tithe and how they're supposed to pay and why they're supposed to pay. But of course, we know that Jesus did come to fulfill the law and all of that. And what that is basically saying is that tithing, if you don't do it, it's not necessarily unto salvation. So that won't be you not being able to get into heaven because you don't tithe. As I said, and as Malachi speaks, it is more so for you, for your benefit. Because once you tithe, everything after you tithe, it said, look at the list of the things that you get from doing it. So there's really not a negative to you following this principle of tithing. It is all for you. It is for you to gain, and for everything that's coming after your finances to be rebuked. So that's basically the tithe. That's what we believe. That's what comes out of our income first.
The next thing on our list is going to be household. Now, household is going to be literally everything that needs to be taken care of, such as bills, any type of envelopes you might have, just anything that absolutely has to be taken care of, no negotiations. That is your household, right? So as you'll be seeing on our list of things, I'm not going to name every single one, but you have, your mortgage, your electricity, your phone bill, credit card, student loans, yada yada. And we have envelopes as well, such as our grocery and vehicle and all that type of stuff. Now, let's kind of note on the envelopes first. So the envelopes, first of all, are something that we started doing because of Dave Ramsey. He swears by using cash just to help you better manage your money. So that's something that we do. We use the envelopes. And so based off of our income, we allocate certain number amounts to each envelope for things like grocery, gas for the car, household items that we need, bleach, cleaning products, that type of stuff. And so we've found that getting that in cash keeps us from overspending. If you only have $200 in your wallet for groceries, you can't spend more than $200. Whereas when we were just trying to, keep a mental log and use our card, there's no way for us to keep up with how much we've already spent in our grocery, and we would find that we went over on every single area. So that's just something that we found that helps us, when you go to the grocery store and your total is $50, you can see exactly how much you have left instead of, just the swiping. You can't really keep up with it, I found.
And even if you can keep up with it, sometimes there's a temptation that you know that you have all of this money together. So even if it's over budget, I can go and swipe it. I can pull from and so I can go and swipe it and add it to that, and it'll be out. No, it helps you to stick to your budget by having those envelopes.
So the next thing about the envelopes that I wanted to talk about is the fact that some of these envelopes are going to change based off of the paycheck, to be honest. So there are some envelopes that are non-negotiable. Of course, we need groceries, we need household items like tissue, we need gas for the car. But as you can see on here, another one that we have, that is a envelope is Cordarius's haircut. Now, I personally don't think that he should, but sometimes he does say like, well, we're trying to save for something. I'm not gonna name anything, but he'll say, I'm not gonna get a haircut this month, and I'm gonna put my $20 towards this. So some envelopes can just be like, optional. And then depending on how much you make, so let's say that you do get a bonus and you get $300 extra this month. So with that $300, you have room to add either more envelopes or add that money into other envelopes that you already have. So one example, and we've done this before, we're not doing it right now because we're trying to build our emergency fund, but we would have a personal envelope. So we had one named KP's personal, Toys personal. And so whenever we had the room in our budget to, we would pay ourselves. And those envelopes just meant like, this is your money to do whatever you want with. The way that we kind of work, we communicate our purchases, right? Just to make sure that we know what's being spent, we can keep up with what's coming out of the account. But the envelope, the personal envelope, I don't need to check in with him. That's my $50. So I don't have to tell him what I'm doing with my $50 because we budgeted that. Now, if it was just not in the budget and I'm finna go spend the money, no, we need to communicate that just to make sure that's something we can do. And so I find that the personal envelopes are like very helpful to just make you feel like, I have planned for this. It's not going to affect any other thing. Like, back in the day when we were kind of struggling, it would be like things that you wanted to do, such as maybe like go get your nails done, right? Sometimes by the end of the month, I would be like, probably shouldn't have gone to get my nails done because now we need to take care of this. So planning for those type of things just kind of helps you not even have to deal with that, I guess. You know that you can spend $30 because you've budgeted for it and everything else, all of your bills and expenses are paid for, so you're not going to possibly mess anything up with your budget down the line.
Yeah, and something she mentioned was the goals. So it just depends on your personal goals that you have within your household budget. So if you aren't, like she said, we're building our emergency fund. So it's not to say that we can't necessarily do or have a personal budget. That's just a goal that we are committed to at this present moment, to building our emergency fund until it gets to a certain amount that we want it to be. And then we can, once we get it to that amount, then we can stop giving it towards there and choose what our next step would be. If that be for us to create a personal budget, or if it's for us to save up for something else. It just depends.
As you guys saw, we have an emergency envelope, right? And we had $150 for that. So once our emergency gets to the point that we want it, there's $150 that we can create other envelopes. So we can make a personal for each of us, or for instance, I'm wanting to buy a camera soon. I can choose to, put part of that or all of that towards a camera envelope. It just like, you just have so much room. And once you get envelopes to a certain number that you want them, then it just makes more room for you to do other things.
So. Yeah. What I will say in terms of this being the order, so the second thing is always household. Take care of your house first. I think taking care of your house first is very important because your livelihood and your well-being is very important. Of course, God is going to sustain us all, but he has also called us to be good stewards over what he has given us. And so therefore, having a budget is a good thing. Paying your tithes first and then taking care of your household, it just makes you feel more free. It makes you feel more accomplished. It makes you feel more responsible with what you have. Paying your bills on time. Even if I don't have anything else left over, to be able to walk into my house and at the end of the day say that for when I've paid my tithes and for 2 All of my bills are paid. There's food in my refrigerator. My wife is good and she's comfortable. She's not stressed out or worried about what we're going to do. Of course, we rely on God for all of that. But just knowing that these things are taken care of, you know, that's a good thing. And that's also a reward of being a good steward over what you have, is that just that feeling of, you know, knowing that everything is all right. Everything is taken care of. And that's of no goodness of, and not of just us doing the work, but it is also of us doing the work. You just think about what, anytime God places something in your hand, is about you being a good steward over it. So being a good steward over what he places in your hand is very important. And so I think taking care of your house, making sure that everything in your house is working well and functioning well, that you are well as a person, you know, that just makes it all the more worthwhile. And also it makes you going to work worthwhile. Yeah. Because if you're not managing your money well, you will sometimes feel like you're working for nothing. If you're not managing your money well, if you're not taking care of your household, you'll never see it. It will sometimes, because you don't pay your bills, you'll always be in debt, or you'll feel like everybody's out to get you, or things will happen such as a garnishment, and man, they taking half of my entire check. I ain't getting to see nothing. And so it's just this slavery mentality, or this slavery, this feeling of bondage, I guess, that you have when you don't have a hold on the things in your house, or when you don't have a hold over all of these other things. So again, that's where that tithing comes in, because tithing doesn't just, you know, rebuke those things. It also gets you in line. It transforms and it renews your own your mind. We're going to renewing the mind now in church. But it just changes everything. It realigns everything. Budgeting realigns everything. It restructures everything. And what you'll notice with budgeting is that you're not as bad off as you think you are. Yeah. When you write everything down and see everything that you have to pay, you will see, man, I do got some wiggle room.
When you also look at like your bank statement and you see just the random purchases that were not named, that were not planned, you just kind of see, I'm just spending money. Like, I make enough money to live comfortably. I'm just spending it. Like, you gotta put a name to your dollar. You have to allocate it, or it will go anywhere.
Yeah.
So the next thing on our list that we do is offering. Take it away.
Offering is from surplus. So offering, so after you've taken care of your household, then you have offering. So offering is any money that you have left over, but the offering goes to God again. So this goes to your local church once again. So this goes to church. This is not a seed. This is something separate from the seed. And so what the Bible instructs us to do with an offering is to decide in your heart what you would like to offer up to God. This is, the 10% was a set amount. But now he gives you the freedom to say whatever you would like to give. More. Yeah, if I want to give more. And so I want to offer this up to God. This is my surplus. This is what I have. So instead of going to McDonald's and spending it on whatever I don't need, I'm going to give this back to God. And so with an offering, God is going to bless that even more. He's going to add to that. That is seed that you're putting in the ground and into his ground. And so this is something that he is going to add to. He's going to bless. He's going to open those windows up even more for you once you put that type of seed in the ground and you are, again, giving this back to him. Now, I'm going to also go over a seed. Now, a seed is something that is the same principle, but it's now kind of like, it gets to go.
To put it into words, it's like surplus. Like surplus times 2. Like, you've already given your offering, but now if you have something outside of
the offering,
your offering that you would give to the church and your ministry, like, this is something on top of that. Like, this is extra that I'm doing, and it's still unto God, of course, but it's not a replacement.
No, it's not a
Right?
replacement
That's the word.
for anything.
Yeah.
Offering is not a replacement for tithes.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about offering. Offering goes to God. Seed can go to many other grounds. So where you have different organizations, or if you want to give to the homeless, these are seeds that you're giving, that you're
Still
spreading.
to glorify God.
Yeah.
But
And
our first obligation is to where we are being shepherded over.
Yeah. And so the seed can go to whatever ground that you want it to go to. Now, what I will say is all of these need to be under the obedience of God and under the instruction of God. So none of this should be on your own doing. Not the tithing, not the home budgeting, not the offering, and not the seed. Because as we know that as Christians and as believers, we are now crucified. And so we have taken on the life of Christ, and he is our lead and our guide in everything. And so therefore, if we're not hearing God concerned, which we should be, we should be hearing God concerning our tithes, our household, how that's going to be structured, our offering, as well as our seed.
Right.
Because, and the reason that I say we should be following his instruction is because sometimes, and what I have said on multiple occasions is that you follow this order, but sometimes God might require something more of you as just a question, and not even a question of your faith, because he knows where you are, but he wants you to make a decision in that, to grow your faith, to give you an opportunity to step out in your faith. And so a story that I think about in the Bible, because a lot of times when it comes around seed time, a lot of people like to use the story of the woman who with the 2 pennies, and she went and she gave that, and that was supposedly her last. And there are many theologians who argue, and many people argue, was that really her last? Like, was she poor? Was she well off? Some people considered her to be well off, and this was just what she had left based off of her being well off. We don't know any of that. I don't know why people try to assume and make all of these assumptions. None of us were there. We know Jesus was using this as an example to his followers on how we should give, and the willingness to give all of ourselves. But you know how we do with stuff like that. But anyway, another story that I thought about in terms of seed giving and in terms of following the instruction of God, and sometimes it may feel uncomfortable because sometimes he might ask you to give a little portion of your household. Now that seems out of order, doesn't it? But when we're following God, it's never out of order. And so I think about the story of Elijah when God instructed him to go to the woman who had the son, and she was about to die. And well, she was about to make this little last feast because, there was a drought, there was a famine at the time. And so God instructed him to go there, and he asked the woman to make him a cake. Yeah. So she was about to make these 2 last cakes for her and her son to eat, and they were going to die. That's what she had made up in her mind. This was all she had. But God gave her an instruction to give something more from her own household. He gave her instruction to give something that seemed uncomfortable. You taking from my mouth now. You taking from my child's mouth now to make you something. So in this, God gives her a little bit of insight to give to the man of God first. And then Elijah tells her, give to me first. Make me a cake first. And then use what is left to make you and your son a cake. Now, she didn't understand at first, but she obeyed. Because of her obedience, she never went without food again. She never went without food again. And so when God does nudge us or instruct us to do these things, and they seem like this big, huge leap of faith, but this is God already telling you, this is an area that I'm about to blow up in. You will never lack in this area ever again if you will allow me to be God in your life. If you will allow what I am saying to you to resonate in your heart and you act in faith off of what I'm instructing you to do. And so this story is in 1 Kings, by the way, if you want to go check it out. But this leap of faith, sometimes God will call us to do these things. And again, it's never for you to be in lack.
It may, so like he's saying, we might get, I guess I can call it special instruction that may not line up with what we have planned and what, our system. And you just have to be sensitive to those times. But I do want to also add, that won't be every time.
No, it won't be every time. It won't be every time.
The second thing is that, even with that story, that being her last, you won't always be giving from your last or from a drought, because the more that we give, the more he will begin to bless us.
Yes.
And the more that we learn to be comfortable and joyful in giving, you won't find many times where, I'm giving my last. He's asking me for my last little bit. This is the last bit I got. You won't be living from that place anymore.
Yeah, because you'll understand that everything that you have belongs to him anyway.
Yeah.
He's just allowing you to touch it a little bit and to experience a little bit what he has. Everything is his already. And so we just get to enjoy some of the perks of being a kingdom kid and of being a one who can inherit everything that he has. We just get to enjoy it. We just get to touch it and feel it and be a part of it. And it can be ours because of who we believe in and who we trust in. And so, you won't always give from your last, but I wanted to say that in terms of it just being able to be so inclined to the voice of God, because he will sometimes give you those instructions that are outside of your budget, that are outside of your plan. But sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't add up.
But it will make sense in the long run. It will make sense, sure enough. Yeah. And again, he will never instruct you to do anything like that if he doesn't have a plan to blow up that area in your life.
Yeah. To end off, as you can see on the screen, we kind of calculate the total of everything together, and then we put what is left over. So out of all the expenses, the tithes, the household, the offering, and the seed, what do we have left from what we brought in for our income? And based off of what is left over, because what is left over will be different every single time, from there we kind of make a decision on what we will do with this. We don't ever want to leave our account sitting on zero. So we like to leave, something on our account just as a extra padding, if you will. After we've left $100 on the account, we take whatever is left from that, and like we said, our goal is to build our emergency. We're gonna tag that leftover onto our emergency. So we already have $150 going into the emergency. We're gonna add that excess into the emergency just to help us
get there quicker.
Yeah. And so for you, it may not be emergency. It may be like, okay, there's my personal, or there's my whatever, car note, whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
Or you may want to give something more to an area that you feel that you need to give to. And again, this is a desire in your heart. This is about willingness. This is about cheerfully giving in terms of seed and offering. And so what I do want to say is that this all is a work in progress. At the beginning, it's uncomfortable. As we talked about in the last video, when it first came down to talking about these things, I was not able to do it because I didn't want to necessarily think about money, because I had such a terrible relationship with money to the point where it was just a strain on me. Like, it was heavy. So my relationship with money was not good. So I had to learn over time that I can have a better relationship with money, and I can, get a hold of it by actually sitting down, having these conversations, of course, praying, hearing God concerning everything. But
something that we've learned just from our whole journey is that the key is not more money.
Yeah.
Because there have been times when we've made more, significantly more, and it still ended up gone.
Yeah.
So I think, in the beginning, our whole mindset or, kind of way of thinking was like, I don't want to have to think about where this finna go or trying to write out and plan to spend it. I just, I got it's on my account. I just want to do it. Not thinking, okay, so when you need tires, what happens?
Yeah.
Okay, the dishwasher disposal just broke.
That's a real thing.
Real thing. So now what? And so we even just had a conversation a couple days ago just about planning to go out to eat. And not only just so that we can know in advance what we will be spending, but just also like, somebody make it something special, something to look forward to. Like,
eating out had become basically our grocery budget.
Yeah.
So we ate out more than we bought groceries. And for one, that's unhealthy. For two, we were spending way too much money. We were spending probably twice
and
or
we were
3 times
sick.
our grocery budget.
We were
and
sick.
she literally had been sick from just eating out at all of these different places.
I couldn't sleep. I would get sick in the middle of the night. Just like my stomach would be so upset from the things I was eating.
Yeah.
And since then, it's just like the key is not more money, and that will come. I do believe that. But it's like he'll give you wisdom and a plan and a way to structure things to where you can see that what you have right now is absolutely enough. It's actually more than enough.
Yep.
Start cooking at home.
Yeah.
Not only will you save money, you will feel better, which we do feel better already. I want some shoes. I'm gonna wait until it is in the budget before I buy them. Whereas before, I would have probably just bought them, and then 2 weeks later, I would have said, wow, that $50 could have really been useful for this thing that I actually need. And so it's just prioritizing what has to absolutely be done versus what can wait because it's a want. And I think the hardest part about all of it, guys, is just sticking with it.
It's discipline.
Yeah,
It's discipline at the end of the day.
At the end of the day,
And
that's what it's going to be.
you can't define it as anything else. All a budget is you being disciplined. And see, that's the issue that I had at first. I didn't want to be submitted to a rule, I guess, or I didn't want to be controlled by this plan. I wanted to control my money, but of course that was out of control because I had no plan. And if you don't got no plan, you finna fail.
And so what we would find that happened every single time, you guys, is we would live it up. We would pay tithes, and we would pay the basic bills, right? And then we would splurge, we would shop, we would eat out, we would do things, and then next thing you know, oh my gosh, we need all that money that we just spent. And so we found that this is a bad feeling, and I would rather be uncomfortable with sticking with this budget and be comfortable and not have to worry about not being able to pay something, or am I gonna have enough to keep the lights on? Like, no one wants to feel that way. I would rather feel uncomfortable keeping my money in the bank than spending it and having a good time, and then 2 weeks later we are struggling.
Yeah.
We are frustrated. We are literally like, okay, what can we return? Because
Yeah, and sometimes you have to be okay with saying, and another thing is just being okay with saying no to a lot of things. We've even had to have conversations.
I've been good at that lately.
No, you haven't. Not at everything.
Serious.
No, I'm saying at stuff with, like, say for instance, that we want to do. Being okay with saying not right now.
Oh, okay.
Because that can sometimes be a problem. Because sometimes we go and we see things we want, and all of that type of stuff. And we just gotta say, nope, not right now. Not right now. And you gotta stick to it. You talking about like to going out and all that type of thing.
And also, guys, I also wanted to just point out, like, even if you are just extremely wealthy, if you don't plan and budget, you will still be living the same way.
Yeah.
You'll still get to the end of the month and you'll be like,
where all my money go?
what?
Yeah. We don't know how to manage this little bit that we got now. When we get a whole lot,
And that would be
we're
a
gonna
shame
be bigger fools
to be
at
blessed
managing.
and to have increase and abundance and to still live paycheck to paycheck, to still get to the third week and be like, how am I gonna make it to the next month?
Yeah.
And he's, you know, so that's why we are really just focusing on like getting it together right now, so that when that time comes, we're not even, this is the way we see it. Any excess money, we try and act like we didn't even get it.
Yeah.
Just so, because for so long we would get excited, like any excess or any, you know, gift that was given, or any increase in pay, it was always just like, yeah, we can spend it, you know? And so we don't want to live with that mentality of like, every time I have more, every time I have abundance, I'm just gonna blow it, and just no savings, nothing to leave behind for your children, no sense of security for emergencies.
Us retiring.
Like, we will always just be thankful to God that like nothing major happened that would require thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Because
we gonna be
where,
up the creek.
who,
Up the creek. Up the creek. But
there was even a point in those moments that I wasn't working, like I told you guys in the last video. If I would have gotten hurt or sick and had to go to the hospital, I didn't have insurance. Where was that money gonna come from? I'm sure that we had at least spent thousands in eating out. That could have been saved for medical. If we would have planned, okay, toys not working, we should be saving up money in case of,
or getting an insurance plan, paying for you an insurance plan. We was just dumb.
yeah. And it's so sickening. There were even times where we were making groceries, right? And we would come home and we were like, okay, so where's the food that we're gonna actually cook and have meals for? We would have gone to Walmart and bought snacks, Oreos, chips, cookies, popcorn, just snacks. And that would have taken up our whole grocery budget, and then we're still left like, we have nothing to make actual meals with.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot that you have to really look at and just become disciplined about. But yeah, guys, that's literally all that we do. It's really simple and straightforward. It's just putting a name to the dollar, and we really try, and I'm not saying that we're perfect at all, guys. We are still at this point not sticking to it 100% down to the penny. And like he said, it's gonna be a work in progress.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, when you put yourself on a plan or like a structure, I feel like you naturally just want to get out of line and just get out, you know, get yourself out of those boundaries, because it's uncomfortable. You just want some food.
I don't want to follow the rules. I want to do.
I want to eat out, move. So yeah, it's just, it comes down.
But you know what? And what happens when you do that? And this is just another lesson. When you step outside of those boundaries, sometimes you're disappointed.
Yeah. Boundaries are to protect you.
Yeah.
This is just how we budget at the end of the day. Seek God on how to structure your own, because
this is just ours.
It's gonna be
This
different
might not
in the
be your
first
plan.
place,
Yeah.
because you have different things, we have different things. Your income's gonna be different, our income's gonna be different, and so just really seek Him on how to structure it. And then at the end of the day, a lot of it is just common sense. You don't have to ask God if you should pay your bills or not. Like, pay your bills, be good stewards over what you have, and He will bless you. He really, I do really believe that he honors principle and he honors order.
Yeah, he honors order.
So that concludes this episode of The Weekend. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Please comment down below. Let us know what you want to see from us next. Give us some ideas, give us some feedback, and let us know what your financial system is like. How do you guys structure your budgets? Is it something that you have down pat at this point, or is it something that you are just now starting to work on? Let us know down in the comments. We can relate on any level, so let us know. But anyways, guys, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you like, and we'll see you guys next weekend. Bye.
Deuces.